Happy New Year, besties and bosses. Happy 2022. How crazy is that? How weird is it that it's 2022? I always find the beginning of the new year, it's like a funny time of the year. I feel like both that it's like, how was this 2022? And then in some ways it also feels like it's been the new year for a month already because I feel like so much has happened in the last few days. So that's where I'm sitting at right now. I want to hear from all of you. How was your holiday? Did you take time off? Did you work? How was your new year? How was your close to 2021 and entry into 2022? We didn't have a live stream last week, which I think besides my honeymoon week was probably the only week I haven't gone live last year. So I missed y'all and I'm excited to chat and to be back and to hang and just to dive into all the good things. So today's live, and hi whoever is joining on now as well on the replay. Hello. So excited for this conversation. So today's conversation was actually one we were going to close the year with, doing a kind of year in review. One of the things I like to do is go back through my year and look at each month and look at some of the milestones and yes, celebrate, I'm big on celebrations, but also just look at some of the lessons and takeaways before I set my intentions, goals for the year ahead. But the end of the year, we ended up doing the word of the year live. It felt like, I don't know, we were all in holiday mode. So it felt like taking some time to also sit with some of those lessons and bring them to you today as a way to kick off the new year would be more beneficial. So we're gonna dive into some of those numbers. I know I shared a post on that, but then I wanna share some of my biggest takeaways and lessons from last year so you can apply that to your business for your results this year, because these are lessons that are universal. And I find every year in business, this March will be 6 years for me in business. And I find some of these lessons, I have to keep relearning. I learn them over and over again, and I just learn a new layer of them each year. And so even if some of these are things you've maybe heard me talk about before, I would invite you to just listen and see if there's a new layer, a new insight, something else you can take away from that. Then I also find each year there's usually a couple nuggets where I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a brand new way of looking at things. So I'll share those as well. And I hope for you, my hope for today's live is this can be a little bit of a mini training to kick off the new year, and that you can take away some of these insights, apply them to your business so that you can blow up your business and bank account this year, because that's what we all want. We want to do it on your terms in a way that feels really good. So if you're watching now, if you're watching on the replay, I would love to hear from you. If there's anything big you're celebrating that you want to be seen around, that's always fun to hear. I will share for some context, if you didn't get the email for the live, or if you didn't see my email where I wrote a year in review and I kind of went through all the behind the scenes in my business, the numbers and what they mean. And I'll link to that post because it was a pretty in-depth post and I got some feedback that was very beneficial. So hopefully it will be helpful for those of you who didn't see it. But just to give some context here, last year for me and my business was a pretty big one. I think many of you know I got married, which that's exciting. I turned 40. So on the personal side, that's very exciting. And then on the business side of things, we added 132K additional revenue. So I came into, or we already have a multi-six-figure business, and we added on top of that from the year revenue from the year before, an additional 132K revenue. We added the year before, I think we added about 100K additional revenue, and that's what made me a multi-six-figure business owner. And the year before that, I think we also added 100K. And just for some context, it's not about the numbers. It's not about whether you made that much or you made 3 times as much as me. That's really not the point here, but just to give context, what I'm really celebrating around that and what I always love to celebrate is I very much do this my way. It's all from one-on-one coaching, not from any other offers, not from using ads or any complication. I also worked far less this year than I probably ever have in my life, which we'll talk about so that doesn't seem, I think sometimes that can sound very confusing. And see if there's anything else there. I think that was the big thing on those numbers. Oh, and then a celebration, which I think is just fun. I saw a couple people doing this on Instagram and I did the maths on this, otherwise I would have never thought about this, but the coaching aside from all one-on-one, we've brought in 700K revenue in the past 3 years from one-on-one alone. So I think that's pretty fun to celebrate. Other big celebration from last year, 11 clients made 100K or more for the first time in their business last year. So I had a couple clients hit multi-six figures for the first time, $500,000 for the first time. I have a few clients who are at the $1 million mark, but I think that first 100K is such a big deal. I really, for any of you, if you're on the side of building to that, and if you're past that, I'm sure you'll attest to this, I really think that first 100K in business is the most challenging because you're building so much of the foundation, doing so much of the mindset work to get out of your own way and to play and be in your strategy for long enough for those results to come in. So I particularly think that, all wins are celebration worthy, but I think that's a pretty big deal. So we're going to talk about that just for some of the context of what the lessons are today. I think those were the big things I wanted to give context around. And I wanted to sit back and think, okay, so I'm really celebrating these. I'm celebrating my clients. I'm celebrating, yes, the money wins, and collectively, that means just those 11 clients alone, and I obviously have far more clients than that, but they alone brought in over $1 million in revenue for the first time in their business, which is pretty cool. And then obviously there's plenty of clients who are bringing in more or who are getting started, but I think that's something fun to celebrate, but also just really wanting to celebrate. We talk about this so much here in this space, the personal and the monetary wins, but then starting to unpack what are some of those lessons behind it. All right, so I made notes on this one. I'm trying to do that more for y'all, because otherwise I just want to ramble and share all the things for 4 hours with you. But if you have questions or specifics, interrupt me, throw them at me. I love your questions. I want this to benefit you. I want this to be applicable to you. So one of the first, this isn't so much a takeaway, but I think this is actually just a really interesting insight and reminder for the power of setting intention, setting goals that you have a lot of belief and conviction around. So when I was doing my year in review at the end of last year, so before we hit New Year, I was going back, and what I didn't realize, I was kind of looking at this is me writing, what are the goals I had written for 2021 in January of last year. And one of the things I wrote was that I was going to add on 100K, and ideally I would add on 130K to my business. Now, y'all, this was in January. I don't even think at that point we had added on the revenue share. I don't think revenue share kicked in until maybe March of last year. So just for context here, and I came within $2,000 of that number that I wrote down, which kind of blows my own mind a little bit. I know I talk about manifesting. I know I talk about the power of intention and belief and how we, thoughts create things. But that was actually one of those things where I was like, holy moly, that's within $2,000 of what I wrote down. And it's not like there was any rhyme or reason for why it should be exactly that number. Outside of that is what I decided and really showed up for. And so I share that with you because I think that's one of the biggest things we forget. We forget how much we have the power to create our own future. And this is not to say if you simply write down a number, this isn't like weird woo-woo magic that's going to make you manifest that money in your business. But if you really sit down and get clear with what is your intention and you have your full body belief behind it, I think maybe what we don't see that is that every day after that, I did the mindset work to lock in the belief around that and to work through my fears around that and to work through my upper limits around that and to show up for that. But it all started with really getting that clarity and that setting that intention and really setting an intention. I think this is important because I know I've had people say, well, why didn't you pick a bigger number then, right? Why didn't I pick 500K as that number? But really picking a number at that time that felt stretchy to me, I had no idea how the heck we were going to do that in my business. I had already just grown to a point where it seemed, for me, impossible at the time. Not impossible, but it seemed like, holy moly, we're making multi-six figures from one-on-one alone. So adding that 130 additional K on, when I wrote that felt like a really big stretch at the time. So it was still a number that was stretchy, but it was a number that very much felt in my system in terms of something that I felt good receiving. I felt like I have no idea how that's gonna happen, but it's absolutely possible for me. I absolutely believe that's something that can be mine. And so I share that because I think sometimes, especially this time of year with the noise that gets thrown out there, it's almost like pick some big number just for the sake of picking a big number. Or pick a big goal just for the sake of picking a big goal. And honestly, I don't know about for you. I know for me and for many of my clients who are high achievers and who can get wrapped up around pressure and perfectionism, sometimes having a goal that's so big, right? If I had picked 500K as something to add on, I don't know if that would have served me as much because either I would have put a lot of pressure around it, maybe made myself feel really wrong, or it would have been really easy to get in my own way or to stop. It's sort of like when we pick something so big, almost intentionally to sabotage ourselves so we don't have to show up for it because we're like, well, that's never gonna happen. As opposed to picking something where it's like, oh, well, shit, that could actually happen. Let me do everything to show up for that. Let me do everything to get my mindset around this. Let me do everything to work through my fears around this. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? As opposed to picking something that's it just feels so far removed where it's almost like a sneaky way of self-protection because you're like, well, that's never gonna happen. I'm not actually gonna show up for it. And so you're picking a big stretch goal, but it's actually essentially not picking a goal because you're not going to do anything to get your belief around it. This is not to say that big goals can't happen. This is not to say that Kim a year ago was incapable of adding 500K on, but Kim, where her nervous system was at, where her mindset was at, does this all make sense for everyone? That was not going to be of service for me. And this is one of the takeaways I've really taken from last year that I want to offer to you. Big goals and more for the sake of creating more, or more for the sake of like proving that you have a big goal, or for the sake of, I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. I think it's really for the sake of proving something really isn't in service of you. And what I have really stepped into in the past year, and this is probably be a lifelong lesson, but really what I've been looking at is like, what actually serves me? What actually serves my nervous system? What actually feels good? So yes, I want to stretch. Yes, I mean, I am all for like, play fucking big, take up space. Like, this will be $1 million business. And I'm all about doing so in a way that really serves my nervous system. And that's coming from a place of inside out versus I'm trying to prove something or do something hard or get more just for the sake of making more. And for me, that's been such a big difference in the experience of that growth and scaling. And I think that's something we just don't talk a lot about in our space. We talk so much about how to make the money, or what's the strategy, or like what's the mindset to stay out of your way so you can hit the goal. We don't always talk about what does it feel like on the way to achieving that goal. What is your experience of that? And I think that matters so much. That's kind of everything we have, right? That's our whole life experience, our whole business experience. I talk so much about making money on your terms, doing things that actually feel good, right? That's kind of why we all got into business in the first place. And so I want to offer that for you as a takeaway, because it's something I'm bringing into this year that I want to deepen into even more. Your experience of how you create your goals matter. Setting those goals, setting those intentions absolutely matter. Pick the stretch goals, but also pick something that, yes, feels stretchy, but that feels good. And I would invite you to pick something that isn't for the sake of proving to anyone else, but really picking something that's going to feel so good in the experience of creating it. Mary says yes and hey. Hey, nice to see you. Nice to have you on. Oh, Happy New Year, lady. Very happy to have you here. So I really invite you to play with that. And then just that reminder, when I look back to a year ago, I had no idea how that was going to happen. And I literally manifested, created in this business within 2K of what we wrote down on a piece of paper, because I then showed up for that every day. But I think just seeing like you also have that power. Again, when you're picking from an inside out place versus an outside in place, I think that really makes such a difference. Mary says, thanks, Happy New Year to you too. Ruth says, hey, totally agree with the goals should be stretchy but realistic. When they're so aspirational, they can be overwhelming, counterproductive, but are often created with a sinister undertone from our ego. It's exactly that. And I think what's really important, thank you, Ruth, for saying that, to articulate here is what is stretchy for me. For someone else, I have clients who make far more money than me, right? And with their business model, with their mindset, with the revenue streams they have, stretchy for them might feel very different, right? $500,000 might be what's stretchy, or $1 million might feel stretchy. So I think it's not about the actual, what is stretchy for someone else watching might be very different than what's stretchy for me. It's such a personalized thing. So for everyone who is watching, this does not now mean it has to be the same number that was stretchy for me. My goal might be very different this year, but I think just playing in that realm of, I think both sides of picking a goal, right? I think sometimes we can play really small because we're so afraid to disappoint ourselves. We're so afraid, like, what happens if I don't reach the goal? I'm gonna feel crappy. And so like, that's a way I think we can sabotage. And I've definitely done that in the past, which is where I think the stretchiness is important. Are we allowing ourselves to stretch and pick something that does feel a little like, oh, well, I actually don't know how that's gonna happen. Okay, but I'm like willing to show up for this and get behind this. I always use the example of yoga for those of you who who do yoga. You know, when you do yoga poses and you're stretching, you want to stretch to that place of discomfort, but not to pain, right? That's kind of like where we want to sit in a yoga pose. That's the same thing here. Stretch to the place of a little bit of discomfort where you can hold it, where you could like, I could hold this for the whole yoga pose, not to the point of pain. And just remember, it's going to look different for everyone. And then exactly, I think there's a place where what Ruth is saying, where we can stretch so far and it really comes from a place of ego. And just really checking in with, I think this has been one of my biggest takeaways and lessons from last year, is just noticing how much our ego, and hey, all of us have ego come in, and ego wants to protect us. There's so much there, but just noticing how much our ego wants to come in and play with business goals and how much our ego wants to prove. And I think just noticing that often isn't the place, if we're really talking about building something where we enjoy the experience of, making money, not just making money for the sake of money. We're enjoying the experience of it is on our terms, and it's something that's sustainable. The more you can just check in with like, oh, that's my ego again. That's my ego. I'm picking that because of my ego. The more you can get out of your own way and pick something that is going to feel more aligned and feel a whole hell of a lot better and easier and have a whole lot less resistance to create. Hearts back to you, Mary. Okay, so that was a big takeaway for me, and also just sort of like, I just matter how much I do the manifesting stuff, y'all. I'm very practically like science minded, and then I'm also very woo. I have like a really interesting balance of both. And every time stuff like this happens, where you're like you can't make that stuff up, my brain always gets a little like, well, that is just wild, y'all. So thoughts really do create things. They have done studies on this. There's practical as well. When you write your goals down, they're more likely to happen, and most people don't write their goals down. It can't freaking hurt to write your goals down. So pick something stretchy and write it down, and keep writing it down and do the work to get out of your own way around it and to work through the mindset of it so you're open to receive it. There really is. It doesn't sound like it's a business strategy, but I promise y'all, it really makes a big difference. Okay, so many things I want to share here. I'm going to share, because this is actually kind of on the tangent of what we're talking about here, and this one was a big takeaway for me, and it feels so important because, again, I think this is just something we don't talk a lot about in our space, and it feels so important. I need a sip of water. Y'all, I just took a COVID test. I hope we're okay, but my bonus son has COVID, and both my husband and I have been just a little scratchy throat. We are staying inside and locking down, but if I'm drinking extra water today, that is why. Ruth says, totally agree. I'm doing my 2021 roundup and 2022 goal setting and planning this coming Sunday, but I 100% know my ego has been vocal in 2021 as I have been preparing for a lot in 2022. I so appreciate you for sharing that, Ruth, and just for normalizing that, because I think that, like, I would be lying if I said my ego wasn't vocal as well. I think that's part of the human experience. I think every single business owner's ego is vocal. And I think there's also a degree to where some of that is healthy. I think some of that does actually serve us. I think it's just noticing, where is this serving me and where is it not? And just being able to notice, where is this being vocal in a way where it's not serving me, or it's going to keep me from being in the experience I really want to be in, where it's coming more from that like proving energy. But I appreciate you for normalizing that. And I think for everyone here, this is not to say if your ego comes into play, like, oh my gosh, you're doing something wrong. It's more to say, welcome to being human, like an invitation to get practice at noticing where that's showing up more and seeing where it's serving and where it's not serving. I do honestly think a tiny bit of ego can be beneficial though. Not necessarily in the way you're talking about, Ruth, but I'm just thinking like in other ways in business. Okay, so this is very much tied into what we're talking about. One of the biggest lessons I think I learned last year that very much has to do with adding on that revenue that I hope you will take away, as well as that, okay, this is kind of a two-parter. One is that making more money does not make you a better coach, a better business owner. It does not make you better at whatever your craft or your offer is. It doesn't make your offer better. And that more isn't more. So let me explain both. I think I went into 2021 very much believing that if I made more money, that would prove that I am a good coach or I am a better coach, and really making that link together. It is not something I love to have a belief around, but we're being real here. We're friends here. I think that's very much a belief I've had to unhook from. And I think our online space, unintentionally or intentionally, really perpetuates this equation that more money means the offer or service on the other side is therefore better. And what I have just seen to be true is that's just a bunch of malarkey. That is not true at all. More money simply means you're making more money. Now, I do think I am a better coach. I think I'm a great coach, and I think I'm a better coach now than I was at the start of 2021, but not because I made more money. I think I'm a better coach now than I was at the start of 2021 because I show up and coach my face off every day. I am serving clients every day. I am in the experience of deepening my mastery and sharpening my craft saw every day. I am behind the scenes in businesses every day. I've had the experience of 11 clients making 100K or more last year, and many clients, scaling to multi-six figures, $500,000, $1 million, right? Being in that experience and supporting them and just being in that practice, that deliberate practice every single day, that's what's made me a better coach. I think I was a great coach at the start of 2021. That's not to make myself wrong in any way. But I think that's what's made me a better coach. That's what has made my offer better or more improved, right? I've also been doing this now I've been a business owner for almost 6 years. I've been coaching I've been in business for 5.5 years. I will have been in business for 6 years March. I was in coach training for a year before that. So that's a lot of years of coaching, right? Of course, that is what's going to improve an offer. And I've had one offer. I've tested other offers. I had a group program when I started my business. I tested a membership. I've tried all the things. It's why I know one-on-one is my thing. Some of you have known me since, I don't know if anyone now or in the replay remembers the Grit Lab, my accountability membership. I had a group program. I had a mastermind. We've had all sorts of different things that I've tested. I really believe in testing things in business. But the point being, my one-on-one offer and the one-on-one offer I've had now, I've had it for so long. I just get to keep rinsing and repeating and getting better and adding things to it. My clients have access to so many resources because we've just had that much time for it to just get to become improved and for more things to be added to it. That's what makes a better offer. That's what makes a better, and not this is like a comparison thing. This isn't a comparison against anyone else. I just mean in terms of like comparing against my own work. That's what deepens mastery in work, not more income. And it feels so important to say because I think we get so wrapped around more money equals better. More money equals more self-esteem. More money equals more self-worth. More money means that's the person you should hire. You should not hire me because I made an additional $132K last year. That is like, if you hire me for that, and you got on the phone and told me that, I would literally tell you should not hire me and you should go hire someone else with all the love in the world. That would be the worst reason to hire me, right? You should hire me because of all of my experience and how great I am at supporting people through sitting through their muck and getting clear on their version of success and making money their way. And I offer that to you because I know, at the start of last year, my brain, like, I got this with a lowercase k, like I knew this with a lowercase k, I didn't know it with a full-bodied capital K, and I know there was a part of me because I'm in a space, I'm in the same online space as y'all, I'm in a mastermind with lots of people who make more money than me and have different business models than me, and it's a lot of work to stay in your own lane and to stay focused on like, this is my path, and it's really easy to think, well, but if I just made more money, then I would be even better. Then I would be better at what I do. And so I want to invite, for anyone listening, if you're like, oh yeah, I've been there. I just want to like normalize. I think our space really, again, intentionally, unintentionally, doesn't really matter. I think our space speaks to that a lot. And I just like so transparently want to share, like that has just been a lot of the work I have done. And I just feel like I can sit in a place now and say like, really and truly, they're just not related. All more money means is you have more money in the bank account. You pay some more taxes. I will definitely pay more taxes. I pay more team. But it also makes it more enjoyable then to scale your business, and it allows you to scale your business in a way that feels good. The more you unhook from my worth of any kind is attached to this money, the more you can unhook from this, the more you can show up and just run at things, and just to know it's all good either way. And also to know like, this isn't going to happen. None of my clients worry. But if I decided, oh, I just love this model, but I want to work with half as many clients this year, it makes it really easy to unhook from the ego part we were talking about, where it's like not like, oh, but I need to like keep doing this so I can like keep making the same money to prove anything. It would simply be, it would be a lot easier to make decisions like that. That is not happening at all. Any of my clients listening, that is so not happening in the least. But just as an example here that feels so important to speak to. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that is something, Stephanie, hey, hi, Stephanie, Happy New Year to you. I didn't see your message there. Happy New Year. I hope that resonates. I hope that is something y'all can take in. I feel like if there's like no other takeaway from that, I would invite you to take that one in. And what I will say from that is, the more you can integrate that into your system as true, ironically, the easier it is to scale your income and to scale it on your terms, to do it your way, because you do stop making that equation that my worth, my offer, how good I am is equated to how much money I make. And it really becomes how much I show up and serve, how much I stay in deliberate practice, how much I deepen my mastery, right? It actually becomes about the work. Like that really determines the quality of my work, and the money is just the beautiful, nice byproduct, which makes it so much easier just to show up and be in the work, which is kind of another lesson. This isn't a lesson, necessarily a takeaway, but something I've just always believed to be true. Showing up and doing the work matters, service matters, showing up for your people matters. And I think that's also a big part that goes into whatever kind of revenue you want to create this year. And I say that because, again, I think our online spaces doesn't say that. They kind of tell you, I think there's a lot of messaging that tells you the opposite. And this doesn't mean you have to hustle. This doesn't mean you have to burn out. But I think the truth is money is the byproduct of, yes, getting the clarity and the intention around that goal, clearing the space so that you can allow it to come in, right? There's such a mindset component to the money side of things. But then it's also so much about showing up and really allowing yourself to do the work and to build those relationships and to sell and to deepen your mastery and to allow for that as well and to not make that wrong. I think that's so much of business. And the more you can see that as a beautiful thing and kind of love the process of it, I think the easier it is to make money. The more you resist that and the more you think that that's a horrible way and that it shouldn't be that way, I think the harder it is to grow and scale business because you're constantly fighting against the things that allow your business to work for you. Okay, I'm a little soapboxy there, but hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so the other piece here that I wanted to share with you on this one is that more isn't more. And we need a little water there. I will keep you all TBD on if we have the COVID or not. But so far, voice is still here. So one of the things, there was a big takeaway lesson for me last year, and so much of my work, I've shared this on the podcast. I think we've talked about this in this group a while, but I started doing EMDR therapy for healing some past trauma. So a couple things come up here. The more isn't more is totally related to this. I swear they're all connected. First piece I wanted to share there, though, with this is I think there's such a bunch of BS out there that if you have trauma or if you have trauma brain, you can't make money. There's, I think, a lot of messaging around how that blocks your ability to make money. And I just want to be such a stand for that's just not true. If that were true, I would have $0 in my bank account. Most of the millionaires and successful business owners I know would not have any money. Most of the clients I know who are really successful would not be making money. I wouldn't have a job. I think there's an element of truth in that the more you heal trauma, the easier it is to make money, the easier it is to stay out of your own way, the easier it is to enjoy the experience of your business and making money. Absolutely. But I think it's really damaging when we start to put out labels that if you had trauma, which most humans do on some level, whether it's trauma with a capital T or lowercase t, that blocks your ability from having success or making money. That's just simply not true. And I think that's a limiting belief and a limitation, just like saying you can't make money. I'm just trying to think of what some other ones are. You can't make money from a one-on-one business model only, right? You can only make money from courses, or you can't make money if you don't do reels, or you can't make money if you're a female or a male, or fill in the blank. I think just saying that's just a limitation, just like a limitation we tell ourselves, just like anything else. And it's just simply not true. Hey Marie, nice to have you live. Thank you for being here. Happy New Year. So I really want to be a stand for that because I've just personally seen a lot of that messaging too, and it can be upsetting and triggering. So if you have trauma and you're healing trauma and you're working through trauma, welcome to being human. I'm sorry, that is not fun at all. And that doesn't mean you can't have a successful business. It often does mean that we have to do more work, right, to regulate our nervous system, to take care of ourselves, but the work is very, very much worth it. So I swear this is coming to a point here in a takeaway. One of the things I invested in this year was EMDR therapy, which has been really great for my nervous system. I've really focused on my nervous system regulation as a way of prioritizing peace, because so much of last year for me, and something I'm bringing into this year, is not just scaling and not just making money, but again, in the experience of that. How can I make the experience of that more enjoyable? And one of the reasons I sought out therapy and an EMDR therapist, what I realized is one of my trauma responses, and one of the ways I sort of learned how to create safety for myself was through work. And I love work. I will always love work. I love my work. I'm someone who I derive a lot of purpose and passion from that. That will never go away. But I noticed how it was also some people drink alcohol. When I would have a trauma response, it was just really easy to pour it into work, which is also just good evidence for you, by the way, that not to say this is a great thing, but just to see that is actually connected to making money. So just for the messaging you see out there that tells you that blocks money, which is not true. But what it made me realize is how the experience of the equation I created in my mind is, if I work more, I make more money. If I do more, I make more money. If I do more and I work more, I'm safe. My nervous system feels safe. And so one of the big lessons for me last year and takeaways that I want to offer to you, and some of the things I've really been working on rewiring, is creating that safety in my nervous system, but also around business, and seeing that doing more is not necessarily equated to making more. Yes, you can do more and make more. That is absolutely, I mean, you can create essentially whatever you believe is true. So if you believe that's true, it will be true. If you believe working more and hard work makes you money, it will. The problem with that is, for me, it's not the best way for me to regulate my nervous system, right? There's healthier ways. There are ways that are more soothing to my system, but there's also a limit on that. There is a capacity to which I simply can't work anymore to scale my income. And the same for you. There is simply like a cap for that. And so that's just been really, maybe fun is not the right word, but it's been a really interesting thing to play with and to unpack, and to keep noticing the different ways this like story wants to come back in that I have to kind of like just work through all over again and create safety around. But I want to offer that to you, because if you're high achieving, if you're a human with a trauma response, if you are a normal entrepreneur, there's probably a part of you that has the story in your mind that more equals more. If I work more, I will make more money. If I work harder, I will make more money. More creates safety. Doing more brings me more. And I just want to offer something that I'm really playing with, that has really served me last year, that I believe will continue to serve me this year, is that more doesn't equal more, right? And looking at how can you prioritize your peace in your nervous system, I believe, and last year got to create evidence around the belief that the more you prioritize your peace, the more you can profit. So that is something I'm sure we've talked about in here, but before, but really offering that to you as a belief. And remember, I know we always talk about this in here, whatever you believe to be true is true. Meaning, if you believe chaos creates money, chaos will create money. If you believe working hard makes you money, you will have to work hard to make money. If you believe that you have to have purple hair to be a millionaire, you will have to have purple hair to be a millionaire, right? Like our brain just, if you believe if you write down $130K at the beginning of the year, that that's what you're going to make, you literally will within $2,000 make that much money, right? Our brains just create, like we just create the reality, the evidence to match up what we believe. So just be really mindful with what you believe. And I would offer you to choose the beliefs that really serve you and serve your experience of making money. That's kind of the theme of today's live. So more doesn't have to equal more. I would offer choose peace and see that peace and prioritizing your peace can equal profit too. Thank you for the heart, Marie. Just seeing, I don't think these comments like popped up in a funny way. I don't think there were any more there. Let me know if you have questions around that, if that makes sense. I hope that was helpful to hear. I promised y'all we were gonna keep it super real on this, so I hope hearing all of those things are helpful. Okay, I'm gonna go back to, how are we on time? We got some more time. Let me know if this is helpful to hear though. What I wanted to share was a takeaway from my clients. So we had 11 clients hit 100K or more for the first time in their business last year. And a couple takeaways from that jumped out that I thought were important to reflect. One, I think that is so much evidence that our online space is booming. Yes, I think I'm an excellent coach and I think my clients are unicorns. And I think the online space has never been louder, and we keep hearing that, right? And we keep hearing the algorithms change and it's so loud on online and there's no more clients online. I don't know, there's a bunch of noise, and I only know that because I hear it from clients. I'm pretty good about keeping the blinders on. And so I want to offer you the evidence that, well, maybe that's true, but that also means if that, like, I don't know what the statistics are exactly in terms of business owners and how many people will make more than $100,000 in their business, but I know that's actually a pretty small percentage of like what the stats say is possible. And so if that many people are hitting a stat that like old school stats said wasn't a thing, I think that's just really great evidence for all of us that things are shifting, and that being in the online space, being an online business owner, being a service provider, it's just so much more viable and so much more a very real way to make money that can be sustainable. And again, yes, I want to like do this and say, I'm a great coach and my clients are epic. And that is so, so true. And I think what's also so true is seeing we're just going to see more of this and letting that be normal and letting that just be evidence where it's like, this is no different than going and getting a job at a corporate place. Like, this is just a path to making money. It's just a different path to making money. And so that was a big takeaway that jumped out for me from that. And then the other thing, we talk about this all the time, but it is, I'm just gonna say it again and again and again. You'll probably hear me say it again in this group. All of those clients have different businesses. They have different business models. They're running different strategies. They have different mindset stuff they have to work through. Literally one of them, like, did not love me for wanting to do content and resisted that and still hit 6 figures and booked out. Another one only did content. I mean, like, it's just so funny how, like, I could line them all up and, like, they kind of all contradict one another in terms of, like, the way they think about business or the way they're approaching business or what they're selling or the way they're making money. And so I offer that to you just as a reminder that, like, truly, you can't fuck this up unless you don't listen to yourself. And there isn't it's not even that there isn't a one size fits all approach, but it's more that, like, what I would say is the common denominator with those clients is they all got clear on what worked for them and listened to that and really did the work to get in belief around that and get in belief that it was possible for them and get out of their own way and then to work the thing that felt good for them to work. And so I just want to offer that to you. It might have looked different and some of the challenges might have looked different, but that's the common denominator. And the timeline was different for everyone. And that feels important to share as well. But when I look at, like, what made each one of those clients, like, suddenly, like, oh my goodness, this just happened, I can think back to coaching conversations with all of those clients where they suddenly got into a headspace of they actually believed this was possible for them. And they actually full got out of their own way and were like, I am showing up for this. This is inevitable. This is happening. And, like, I can just, like, remember some of those conversations and I can just see it for every single one of them. It wasn't like any one of them was like, wait, how did this happen? For all of them, it was sort of like, oh, of course this happened because there was that day where I drew that line in the sand and I decided this shit is happening for me. So I want to offer that because that feels very important. But I promise you, they all did it differently. And it wasn't like they had, like, the perfect subject line or the perfect email or the perfect, I don't know, training or live stream or marketing or thing, and that was the thing. It was a combination of finding the stuff that worked for them, deciding, believing, getting out of their own way, and showing up consistently enough. Really and truly. Okay. Let's see here. I have so many things here and I want to be mindful of our time. So I want to see the big ones okay. This is one I promised you all in our description for today's live, so I should talk about this one. And then if we have time, I'll talk about 2 just really practicals because those are helpful as well. So I think I shared in the email just one of the ways I'm, like, staying out of my own way for the year ahead. And what I wanted to share here, one of my biggest takeaways, and it's funny, we did a live stream on this probably a year ago, so this isn't, like, brand new information, but I really hit this. Okay, so I got married in October. I want to say November. So this is a pretty recent thing where it just, like, hit me like a ton of bricks of, like, oh, upper limiting is such a real thing. And it's just such a real thing. And sitting with the good is actually wildly uncomfortable. And we don't talk about that a lot because I think it sounds kind of like a bratty thing to say, but I'm going to share it with you because otherwise we're talking about how can you apply this to your business. I think it's one of those things that can make you feel like you're doing something wrong instead of seeing, oh, this is a super normal human thing to do and just something to understand so that you know you can bring it to your coach or bring it to your support so you can work through it and move through it. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. I think we also make upper limiting sound like this is the worst thing ever, as opposed to, like, oh, it's kind of just like welcome to a higher level good problem to have. But something I found right around November, so I got married in October, I was suddenly sitting in a place in my life where it's like, I'm married, I just turned 40, my business is doing really well, I kind of have all the things I've spent a really long time in my life working through. I've been doing this EMDR therapy, so my nervous system is feeling better. I have a team that's working well, all of these really positive things, which I'm so beyond grateful for. And my system really freaked out. And I share this, especially because we've been talking about the trauma stuff. I think for me, it's very much a trauma response. My system, like full on, was like, this can't be safe. This cannot be okay. And it was very, very uncomfortable. Like literally, when I say uncomfortable, I mean like in my nervous system, in my body. And so I bring that to you just to say that's a very, very normal thing, whether you have a trauma response or not. I think most people hit a level of things being good in their life, and the brain cannot compute because your brain is not designed for really good stuff. Your brain is designed to keep you safe and to look out for threats and to protect you. And it's sort of, I mean, half of the work I do with my clients is just helping them over and over and over again, not to create problems that don't exist, because our brain just so badly wants to find problems because it thinks if it can find a problem, you are safe and it can protect you, right? Anyone a worrier out there? Always lovingly pushing my clients to notice how worrying doesn't really serve you, but our brain loves to worry because it thinks if I just worry and I can find that thing ahead of time, that I can protect myself, right? That's just what the brain wants to do, and it wants to do that in business. And so then when you're growing in business, when you are creating success, when you're doing the mindset work, when you are taking care of your nervous system, when you're prioritizing your peace, when you are working on the things to enjoy the experience of making money on your terms, and you're suddenly like, oh, all of these things are working for me, your brain doesn't know what to do with that. Your brain is like, wait a second. So let's just work low. Like there must be something here. And it just wants to work on overdrive to find those things, right? So that it can keep you safe. And so I offer that again to you because I don't know a single business owner who doesn't experience this. And I have experienced this before and worked through it, but I experienced it just to a whole different degree this year. And I think if you don't know about that, like it's almost sort of like it can throw you off guard. I think I was blessed enough where it's like, I see this through so many clients. One of the gifts of being a one-on-one coach and seeing behind the scenes and helping so many clients with their businesses, I've supported so many clients with this. I've seen this so many times that it's also easier to spot it myself. And I have a coach I've worked with for almost 4 years at this point, and she knows my BS like the back of her hand. So it's also really easy to know what it was to bring it to her, but she would have been able to call me out on it anyway. And my brain tried to be sneaky with that. So again, I just want to offer that to you and really offer you that as a takeaway, because here we're talking about like goals for the year and how to increase your revenue. What are the takeaways so you can make more money on your terms and kind of have this life where you just get to have more of the good stuff. And I don't want to create a story where it's like, and then you're going to upper limit. I think it's just, and then no, your brain's going to hit a point, everyone's will, where it's like, it doesn't know what to do if it doesn't have a problem to solve. And so just when that happens, just not making that this horrible thing, like it's not like the bottom felt like my life is great. Like the bottom didn't fall out. It just meant I just had to do some work to allow myself to sit in the good, to allow it to be good. In fact, my word of the year for this year is celebrate, which I resisted even though I love to celebrate because I was like, no, I'm doing that already. But I'm making myself do that word for this year for exactly what we're talking about, just to practice sitting in the experience and allowing the good. And so I want to offer that for all of you because super, super normal thing to normalize it. If that is you, if that has been you, welcome to being human. That isn't a bad thing. But then the work there is just seeing how can I practice creating safety around things being good and celebrating that and acknowledging the good and noticing where am I blocking more good from coming in. Because I do think if I look at, so that was kind of November, if I look at that and I look to this year ahead, I also know my work, if we want to continue to scale, part of my work is also stretching my capacity to receive good stuff and to sit in that discomfort and to keep stretching that so I can hold more. Otherwise, it's not going to feel, at a certain point I would probably sabotage and it wouldn't feel good anymore. And so for you, if you're finding yourself in that place too, I think just seeing like it's normal, but it's so important to do that work to create safety, get the support around that so you can continue to stretch your capacity so you don't push it away, so you can keep renormalizing, resetting what that new level is. Mary says, yep. Stephanie says, not a worrier, but I definitely think if something doesn't work, it must have been something wrong. Ooh. Star says, this is so, so good. Oh, I love you. Thank you. With the worrier part, if something doesn't work, it must have been something wrong. I think that's kind of part of, like, it's part of the same pattern in our brain. And I don't know for you, Stephanie, but I think that's just such a normal thing, right? Like there must be something wrong. And I know for many of my clients, then they jump to, and that must mean I did something wrong. And as opposed to sometimes stuff does, well, we could also have a whole nother live stream on this, but sometimes stuff doesn't work because it hasn't had enough time yet, because that's just a normal, this is like a whole nother live stream, but like just the normal stats in business, right? I was talking about this with another client, but we were talking about like, not that anyone here has to be normal and you can't like far surpass normal business stats, but there are just certain things in business statistically where even if you're an anomaly and a unicorn and like blowing those stats out of the water, like things can look like they don't work and they're actually working really, really well. For example, like in a first time launch. And so I think sometimes there's a way too where we think something's not working, but it's more that actually it's working really well, probably even better than you think. And it's just that it's like it needs two more launches, or it just hasn't had enough time to play out yet. I probably always use the gym example, but it's sort of, I always think about it with training. If you're like, oh, I'm not fast yet, and you're like, my training must not be working, where the truth is, well, it's just because you haven't been training long enough, and if you just train a little bit longer, it's like, it's already working, it just needs a little more time to work. So I think that's that. Then on the other side of things, not to turn this into a whole nother live streaming topic, but just because the thinking that something is wrong or making things wrong is just, I think, such a way, unintentionally, really smart business owners can sabotage their business. I think there's a way sometimes too, this is like such a woo way of thinking about things, but what I think, we did a podcast episode, I'll have to pull which number it was, but we were talking about how Indigenous people would make intentional forest fires in the forest in small patches to clear away kind of like the dead leaves and to really create space for healthy forests to thrive. And I think that sometimes happens in business as well. Sometimes we can't see the things that aren't working are literally creating space for things to work really, really well. I've definitely seen that in my own business and through my clients. It's just when we're in it, it just feels like we're in the middle of a forest fire instead of realizing, oh, this is actually working so in my favor for those bigger picture goals I have. I just can't see that some stuff has to be cleared out first. So anyway, taking us on a tangent, but I really appreciate you, Stephanie, for saying that. And I appreciate you, Star, as well. Let me know if you all have questions. I'm just seeing here if there was anything here I wanted else to offer on the upper limiting. The main thing I wanted to offer with the upper limiting piece, and just in terms of that takeaway, is just seeing, and what I would offer for everyone here is just knowing, again, this is normal at every level, and again, not making that wrong, and seeing, I think just some of that work is, again, how can I create safety with things going well, with things being good without there being problems or drama, right? I think so many humans are, without knowing it, a little addicted to drama. And so when we break up with that addiction to drama, especially as you're scaling in business and things get kind of boring because they're very well oiled and you don't have all that drama and you don't have all the dopamine hits from that, the brain is sort of like, oh, I want to stir up some drama, or this doesn't feel safe. So I think just noticing, like, how can I start to create some safety around that being actually okay, being a really good thing, that boring is a really good thing, and stretching my capacity for good. I invite everyone here to play with that this year. How can I stretch my capacity to hold the good stuff, to receive the good stuff, to sit in the good stuff? See what comes up for you. Okay, last, I'm gonna give you two practical ones, and then we have almost been live for an hour, then I'm gonna let you all have your evenings back. Two really practical ones. This is so practical, but so important, and we've talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again. At a certain level in business, really looking at your systems and your processes and your support is such a difference maker. That in your mindset, I mean, I think it goes without saying, mindset is 90% of the game, but truly, 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 the mindset piece, and there's mindset around systems and processes and team. I don't want to say there's no way that we couldn't have scaled my business last year and added on 132K in revenue without team, without systems and processes, but I don't know that I could have done that in a way that actually felt good, where I was enjoying the experience of, which is what we were talking about at the beginning of the live, where I would have been upper limiting, where I'm like, this feels so good, how is this possible? Where I could tell you, we did that, where I think I probably worked the least ever and where I'm not burnt out. I don't think it would be sustainable if it weren't for my team. I think I shared this maybe in the email with the numbers, but there was a month last year where I was accidentally overbooked because of the number of clients who had renewed, and we had booked in from the wait list, and it was fine, but I was sort of like past my capacity. And I don't think any of my clients knew that. I think we really served everyone so well. I think I showed up so presently for everyone that it is always like so important to me to show up so fully for each client and to like show up really clean for them and check my stuff. But the only way I was able to do that is because I have a team that is supporting me, and we have systems that we have worked over years so that certain things are easy for us to keep rinsing and repeating because we're not reinventing the wheel all the time, and it's easy for them to step in and support me. And because we definitely shared this in the numbers email, I have a fuck ton of support in like behind the scenes as well, not just from team, but I've worked with the same coach forever. I'm in her paid mastermind. I'm in a peer mastermind. I have the EMDR therapist I told you. I also have my team. My husband is very supportive and picks up slack around the house. So I share that just to say yes, I'm so not here to say things are not possible and you can't scale your business or you can't make money if you don't have support. I'm here to say anything is possible. You can do anything you decide, period. Anything you decide and you believe and you commit to and you set those intentions around, you can do that. And enjoying the experience of doing it on your terms, doing it in a way that feels really good and juicy and lights you up, where you're actually excited to show up for your people and you're like, pinch me, how is this my life? And you want to sustain it year after year, because I don't know about you, but I want to still be doing this 10 years plus from now. I do think then the level of support you're receiving is also kind of equated to like the level of support you're able to hold and give. And I know for me, the more capacity I hold for other people, the more I need to be held as well. Like, it's just sort of like, I need that so I can show up and hold people really well. Star says, wow, overcapacity, who knew? Well-oiled machine. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, overcapacity. And you know what, thank you for bringing that up, Star, because I think what is also helpful to say there, one of the things I'm really grateful for around that is I also didn't know what overcapacity was until I was at overcapacity. So that was also, and I say this for Stephanie, what you were saying about like when things go like wrong or things don't go out to plan, like how we can think things are wrong. And I think there's a way in which I could have easily made that like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this? How did I let this happen? This is a big problem, instead of, oh, well, I don't know. It's kind of like, in a weird way, it's a beautiful thing because that many clients, everyone renewed basically, and we had some people on the wait list, and like, that's a beautiful, like, and I love this and I want to serve everyone. That's kind of a beautiful thing, but there's really no way I could have known what my edge for my capacity was. It's just my clients will tell you I'm like the queen of the worst, like inappropriate examples ever. But it's sort of like for any of you who have ever had too many shots, you don't know your capacity until you've had one shot too many, and then and you will never drink that many shots again. Kind of the same thing here. So I'm actually quite grateful for it, because now we're really aware of that, and I can just make sure we have a few more checks, and we also know like then what I need to support myself around that. And yes, systems, and what I will share is our systems being well-oiled did not happen overnight. Those have been a process. So I had my first team member however many years ago, and we've added on, and we keep refining and oiling those systems and those processes, and there are some that still have to be refined. The podcast is actually a really great example. That was the new thing we added on last year. We didn't have a process for that when we started the podcast, right? It's taken us some time to create a system and a process around that, and now it feels really easy for us because of that, and it's really easy for my team, and they're really well oiled with that. But that took us some time to like bring in something new and add that on. So that feels important to speak to, but that team and that getting support piece, I just get very fired up about, and I just want to normalize that as well, so that there's not someone watching who's at the phase. I was at the phase in business where I was still working a 9 to 5 and doing this solo. Yes, I had a coach, but it was me, a coach, and my 9 to 5 job, working late nights and early mornings and kind of the cracks in between time. And I think it's so easy then to almost make that wrong, or make like the capacity maybe you have at that level wrong, and just to see like that's not wrong. And as you grow, if you want to stretch your capacity, there's a good chance having support is going to be a part of what allows you to have and stretch your capacity. And a lot of the people you're looking at who are stretching their capacity and who can hold, yes, more revenue, but also hold more offers or hold more clients or hold more success or hold more visibility, whatever that might be, oftentimes with that stretching of what they're able to hold, they also have support to help them hold that, so they don't have to hold it on their own. Okay, I think that's clear. And then last thought, I will leave you on the practical side, and you're all gonna roll, well, actually two things here. You're gonna roll your eyes at me because you all know this, but it is so worth saying anyway. The compound effect is so real. The compound effect in terms of, I mean, there's a couple different ways to think about this. I think in terms of what we were talking about with more money doesn't necessarily equal you're better at your craft or job. It's more the deepening of the mastery. The more you do something, the more your results add up and compound over time, meaning the more you work the same offer, the more that's going to compound and snowball. The more you're in your business showing up in the same strategy, even the like worst strategy in the world, the more those results are going to compound for you. I think, and this is why I said at the beginning of the live stream, this year is probably one of my easiest in business, but that's not really a fair thing to say without context. One of the reasons this was the easiest, but also our biggest year in business to date, yes, is definitely the team, but a lot of it was the benefit of the compound result. I've just been doing this long enough that things feel a lot easier, right? Some of the stuff I'm doing is exactly the same. It's just, I've been doing it for so long now, right? I've been going live every week for however many years, right? I'm doing the same work. It's like from the outside looking in, the action probably looks the same. It just feels a lot easier because I've been doing it a lot longer. So there's that part of it. But I also have a lot of ease built in terms of I've been showing up and building relationships and doing this work. Yes, in terms of like deepening my mastery, but also I can't tell you how many times I book a client because it's someone I connected with 3 years ago. And, you know, they showed up for a workshop or they showed up for a free call and that wasn't the right time. And then they hire me later. There's just as much of that as people who see me right away and like get a call and hire me or whatever that might be. And remember, the reason I said I was overbooked is the majority of my clients, I'm very blessed. I love long-term relationships. The majority of my clients renew. So there's a lot of compound ease in that as well, right? There was a time where I was still getting fully booked. And so that brings in a lot of ease. So I share that again, where it's like, yes, I think it's almost like obnoxious to be like, well, it was like the easiest year in business. But just to see the reason for that is all of the hard work or like that was done that laid the path for that, and so many of the results that have shown up just simply because I've just been planting and watering seeds for a really freaking long time now in our online space. And I share that for anyone here because I think it's kind of to what Stephanie, what you were even saying, like I think there's a way in which if we plant a seed and it doesn't sprout right away or doesn't like yield fruit right away or a crop right away, however we want to go with that analogy, where we can make that wrong. And we like dig the seed up and we're like, why aren't you growing? And instead of like, just keep planting seeds, just keep watering them. Like that's kind of not my strategy. I mean, of course we're strategic and we do things with intention here, but there's also just been a lot of, we just keep planting seeds and we just keep watering them and we don't dig them up. And that's the compound effect. My investments benefit from the same thing, right? It's not like I'm a genius investor. It's just that we, I don't know who I say we like it's me and someone else investing, me and my higher self. My higher self and I believe in the compound effect. And so we kind of plant investments, right? And we water them and we leave them alone. And that's why, like, same thing in the stock market, or like your investments can do really well. So I want to offer that here because I think there's a way which that almost seems too simple, but also frustrating in the like immediacy or like the lack of immediacy with that. And I just see this from anyone I see scaling, however fast they've grown, anyone scaling that you're looking at is benefiting from the compound effect. And that's where a lot of ease comes from. Star says, thank you for saying that. Grit and longevity, compounding effort equals ease. Yes, so much ease, and so much yes to that. And I think there's a way, I'm trying to think of how to say this. I don't think we need to burn out or have a hustle mentality or think that like you have to grind it out to create results. And I think it's unfair to say that business, especially starting and building a business, is easy. I honestly think it's hard, and not from like, it needs to be hard work, or again, you need to burn out, but just in terms of it is challenging. If it were easy, everyone would do this and everyone would like be screaming from the rooftop and like, I don't know, throwing dollar bills in the air. And that's not the case. I think it is challenging, and it's allowing ourselves to show up through, have the grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for long-term goals, right? Showing up through that beginning stage, doing the hard work then. And again, doing the hard work meaning showing up when it doesn't feel easy. The first live stream I did was probably the shortest live stream and probably the hardest one I've ever done. That's what I mean by hard work. I like doing the things that are challenging, not grinding it out and working crazy hours, but it's doing that then like brings the ease. So yes, exactly what you're saying, Star, and just to reflect and say that again for everyone else. And also just to normalize, because that can be so damaging otherwise. It can make, it just is so easy, I think, in our online space to, it's no one's fault. We're all writing posts that have like 350 characters. We cannot possibly include all the context, nor would that be serving for marketing or serving for anyone if you want to be unapologetic in your work. But then because we're missing context with so many things, it's easy to read a post that says, I made the most money ever last year and it was super easy and I did it without ads and I worked less than ever before, and to miss the context of, and that's because I like had these other pieces underneath it. So I just want to give context there. All right, and then the last thing I will leave you, because we can have a few more minutes. Y'all can also watch in the replay if you don't want to hang for this. But this actually feels important because this is something that I'm really thinking about for this year as we're looking forward to this year's goals, this year's numbers, and that I want to offer for you as you're playing with the same so you can really apply this to your business. Thinking about, instead of getting so wrapped around just the numbers and the money, thinking about what are your non-negotiable process goals, meaning what are those non-negotiable things you're showing up for, the things that can compound, and thinking through the lens of service. Because if I look at what created 132K of additional revenue or 100K additional revenue the year before, what's going to either sustain our income or scale our income this year, right? It's not getting obsessed about the numbers. It's not getting obsessed about like, how can I make more money for the sake of more money? It's not looking at people and thinking how, especially with a revenue share, y'all, like it's kind of out of my control. And how gross would that be if I was just like, how can this person make me money, right? That actually is not the way at all in which this business sustains or scales. And I want to offer, for anyone here who's heart-centered, probably wouldn't feel good for anyone to be coming from that place. What does allow this business to sustain and scale, and what I want to offer here, is being really clear on what are those non-negotiable process goals we have. What are the things I am showing up for, or my team if I'm delegating that out, right? That get to compound to give those results. How can we make those non-negotiable? How can we make sure we can either keep those going well-oiled or deepen into them and refine them? Right? That's really the stuff to focus on. And how can we focus on service? The ex-waitress in me, I know we've talked about this so much here and on the podcast, but service sells, y'all. I think we forget that. I think we forget that most of us are service-based business owners. I mean, I know most people here, you don't forget that. If anything, some of my clients, I have to like pull them back a little bit, make sure they have boundaries. But I think just forgetting, like, those things don't go out the window. And that's really what equals dollars, especially in a crowded online space where so many people are looking for like, how can they like get rid of the service element and get rid of the non-negotiable process goals, and like they're just focused on making money for the sake of money. Those things, like, that's just solid business practicals that are never going to go away. And whatever your monetary goal is, if you can take your focus off of obsessing around the number, because I'll tell you what increased our business last year was not obsessing over the number at all. Like, I shared the work we did, right? None of the work you heard was me like saying mantras over and over again about like the money raining from the sky. It was doing the internal work and like showing up for this stuff, and showing up for the stuff that would allow us to have the process goals completed and to be able to be of service. So I want to offer the same to you. Play with that as you're looking at, yes, get clear on those monetary goals, get clear on what you want, like set some intention around it, because having goals is important, like we talked about at the beginning of this live stream. But then when you look at that, really look at, what are my process goals? how can I lean into service? How can I really let that be my compass? And then how can I do the internal work to keep getting out of my own way and to keep staying, I say clean. Clean's the term I like. I don't know why. I think because I don't love the term unblocked, because I think that makes it feel like we're blocked or we need fixing or something like that. I just like to think of it as like clean energy and doing the work to stay clean out of our own way. And just keep leaning into that work that is going to serve you all day, every day in your business. All right. I love you all so much. Thank you for hanging. I know this was a long live stream. I hope this was valuable for you. If any of you want support around this, if you are like, okay, this is my year. I know this is my year to blow up my business. This is my year to blow up my business and my bank account. I want to do this in a way that feels really good. I want to enjoy the experience of it. I want to do it my way. I want to be one of those people at the end of the year that is celebrating their income wins or celebrating it because I did it with integrity and I did it by like also like feeling good in my nervous system. That is what I love to support my clients with. Yes, we also geek out on the strategy. I love marketing, I love sales, so I got you there as well. But we really do like to look at it through this lens. I will drop a link for a consultation and you can hop on there and book a call and snag one of our upcoming spots as they become available. Stephanie says, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Love you so much. And I'll be back next week. I believe we have a guest next week. I have to double check, but I believe we have a guest next week. So I will see you next week with her. Bye y'all.